Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is our 50th episode. Sweet baby James.
We're 50? Man, that hit quick.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to get there for a couple more years.
Hey, that means we feel good, right? Or at least I feel good. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm feeling okay most days, a little tired, but but in all seriousness, this is our 50th episode, and this is our Mailbag episode where we will be answering listener questions. Before we get started, first off, thank you so much to every single one of our listeners, our fans for the past year plus. We've been doing this about a year and a half now, almost. If you think about it, we started, I think, last February?
Something. I don't know.
Last remember. February, March, somewhere around there was our first episode.
Maybe.
And I started with Eddie Brock.
Yeah. Good old Venom.
And to think about where we've come over a year later, how far we've come.
To the point that we're doing interviews, we're doing thematic episodes.
We have merchandise, all of which we will get to in a moment. But in all sincerity, we have a long list of people that we want to thank, and we're not going to get too sappy into this. But obviously, first off, I couldn't do this without you, Doc. I know we've talked about this idea for a while. This podcast would not come together literally without your help, without your expertise, without your friendship, without your support. So just me personally, thank you. And I appreciate everything that you do for the show.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank my wife for letting me run this out of our old apartment and now our home. And the fact that I have an office that is largely just dedicated to my computer and also doubles as a makeshift recording studio. And the fact that on a day like today, she has taken our son to her parents so that I have peace and quiet. And we can record with the door open so that this room doesn't become boiling, blazing hot, especially because the day when we're recording, New Jersey is being hit with a massive heat wave.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, must say.
And it's brutal. So kudos to her for all of her continued support. Thank you to each and every single one of our listeners, our friends that we've made on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and especially our patrons. Thank you to my mom, who was, I believe, our first patron, the first person to sign up. It was either her or Brian. Brian is a longtime friend of ours, just both personally as well as on the show. Thank you to our present level patrons, Brian, Ariel, Ruby, and Matt. Thank you to Salvador, Ray from Into the Night, Robbie, Steve, the Phantom Zone podcast, all of our patrons that continue to support this show financially and give us the love and support that we need to keep the show going. Again, we really started off as just two guys wanting to talk about how basically almost all mental illnesses in comic books were being portrayed so unrealistically, and where we have come a year later at this point is more than I think either of us could ever have imagined. And to think that we would be as big as we are and as financially stable as we are with this, not that we're making heaps of money, but just the fact that the show is able to support itself on listener support, thanks to listeners like you.
That's right.
Is amazing.
Yeah. I'd also like to thank my family. I know my wife has been incredibly courteous in terms of the timing of all of this. I know that my family, my sisters, my father, have all been incredibly supportive of anything I've done in my life, and they continue to be so. To the professionals that I work with, that I had the guts to even tell them that I was doing this and not be immediately laughed out of the room, and at times give me inspiration and ideas on how I can talk about different characters behind the scenes. I greatly appreciate what they're doing. to anyone that's ever heard this, even people that ultimately felt that this wasn't for them, because I'm not going to pretend that everything is absolutely perfect all the time. At least you're willing to open your ear to people that may not always talk about things the way that we would prefer to talk about things. Everyone has different viewpoints, different advantages. But the more you open your mind, the better. So the fact that two of us that have known each other for quite a while, and for Anthony to literally open his home to me to do something like this and take a Herculean role in every aspect of this production. He is literally the sound guy, literally the technician, literally the hype man, literally our full advertising and productivity manager, which basically means he gives me a kick in the butt a lot. All of it is because of him. And sometimes I know he downplays it for the sake of having me talk, but without him, this wouldn't exist. I would still probably have these types of random conversations, but not nearly as focused, and not being able to reach people that either they wanted to hear it or, heaven forbid, someone needs to hear it as a motivational thing. The fact that he's put in this much time and effort and continues to do so is a credit to him as a human being. So thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. And it isn't always easy. It is certainly a lot of time that I spend on this show, but it's only because I believe in what it is that we do and what we provide as a service and as an idea that I spend so much time on it. And again, thanks to my wife for understanding that it's not just the time I spend recording, it's the time that I spend editing, it's the time that I spend reading to research or promoting the show on Twitter. I could basically do Twitter as a full-time job for God's sakes. And I know I'm home with my son, and that allows me a lot of time to work on this stuff. But there's still, we could get an intern or an assistant just to handle social media, for God's sakes, to do the hype and the promotion for this. So it is a lot. But again, it's because our listeners have proven to us that they value what we bring. And so that's why we do it. If it were just for me and Doc, I wouldn't care nearly as much as I do. But because there are people out there, people that we don't know personally, people that are outside of just our immediate friends and family circles that like and believe in what it is that we do, that we have been able to reach those people. That's why we continue to work as hard as we do. And we're going to continue to work as hard for the next 50 episodes.
Yep, absolutely.
And beyond.
Yep.
So I know we mentioned merchandising earlier. We now have a TeePublic store. So if you go to teepublic.com/user/capes on the couch, you can buy all sorts of cool merchandise with our logo on it. And as of this recording, but by the time this gets released, the discount will be over. But I've promoted it on social media that right now folks are buying t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, a notebook. There's all sorts of stuff. I mean, you can theoretically buy, not that I included this as a category, but you can buy a tapestry or wall art with our logo on it. You could buy a pillow with our logo on it. I work on this show. I'm one of the co-hosts, and I don't want to sleep with the logo next to my head.
Nah, that's a little too creepy.
That's a little much for me, but the shirts and the stickers and the mugs and everything else, that's totally cool, which ties into what I want to announce next. All of our patrons from the $3 up level, you're getting a sticker. You get a sticker. You get a sticker. You get a sticker. Everybody gets a sticker. And all of our present level patrons, you get a coffee mug.
Yay!
For being so awesome, because that's how much we appreciate you guys.
Yep.
Because you continue to support this show. You continue to make this show what it is and what it is continuing to grow to be. And
yep. And we know that you need the caffeine in that mug to stay awake while we talk. Wait, that's the opposite of what I'm supposed to say to advertise.
We know we put you to sleep, so you need coffee to listen to us. No. But again, the patrons are the reason why we've been able to build up this show, and the point that now we are getting creator interviews. So that's a good time as any to announce that we had a couple of weeks ago, we spoke with Jeremy Whitley, the author of The Unstoppable Wasp. Our next episode is going to be, or I'm sorry, 2 episodes from now is going to be an interview with Erica Schultz, and she's going to be talking to us about Callum Cooper, who is the hero of 12 Devils Dancing. It's an independent graphic novel. It is absolutely fantastic. I met her at a comic convention, and we got to talking, and I just was really digging her writing style and some of the stuff. She has worked on the big 2. But she does a lot of creator-owned stuff. But I just was really drawn to this story. I just find it to be very interesting, and it's something that it's a nice, concise tale that is not something that you get. It's definitely not a superhero story. So if you're looking for superheroes and superpowers and stuff like that, that ain't it.
Right.
But Callum is definitely he's a flawed hero. I think that's a fair assessment.
That's an understatement.
He's definitely a flawed individual, and I feel that there's a lot to work with. So you can check that out. The cover is done by the incredible Bill Sienkiewicz, and I forget who's handling the interior artwork. But in any case, that's coming up in 2 weeks. Next week, we're doing the Riddler because our present level patron Brian has requested it, and then we're also going to be doing She-Hulk and Jason Todd as per our patron requests. But this episode is not about any character. This is our mailbag. We decided for the 50th we would open it up and sort of free the format. And so we opened it up to questions from our listeners, from our fans and patrons, and basically anybody who wanted to know anything about the show. We are going to we're going to answer questions. So we have seen the questions. We haven't really discussed the answers. So it's just we looked at them just enough to type them up and put them in a document. So everything you're hearing is going to be very off the cuff, free flowing. There's not going to be a whole lot of structure to this episode other than just answering the questions. So the first question comes from, or the first series of questions comes from our patron Ruby. So Ruby starts off, what was the one movie, show, moment that got you hooked into comics or superheroes as a kid? So Doc.
Oh my gosh, on the spot we're starting. So going to my memory banks, I think I saw Flash Gordon of all things, and
Flash.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that may not qualify completely, but between that and the early Superman movies, I think that got me hooked. Now, having said this, I'm not encouraging this for all children. I watched everything. I watched every possible cartoon that was on the planet at the time, so I binged on anything you could imagine that was produced anywhere between the 1970s and the 2000s. So it's not fair for me to just name one over another, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for me personally, I remember the Batman movie coming out in 1989. And again, I know I'm dating myself for some of our younger listeners. I was 7 years old when that came out, and I remember distinctly watching it and thinking, wow, this is really cool. I had a big, like, I don't know, God, it was probably about 2 feet tall, this Batman figure. It was like a doll that I brought with me everywhere. So I remember seeing that movie, and I remember thinking that was really cool. I remember being very into the Spider-Man series that was on Fox in the mid 90s. I want to say around 94. That was very big for me.
Ooh, the X-Men.
I was not, ironically, I was not that big into the X-Men cartoon. It was something I watched it. I watched the occasional episode, but I wasn't into it. But Spider-Man, I remember, this is a true story. I remember I was part of a spelling bee on a Saturday morning, and I got eliminated early, and I didn't get eliminated early intentionally, but I remember once I was eliminated, I said to my parents, well, we can go now. And my parents said, why? I said, because Spider-Man is going to be on, because it was the first episode. It was the debut of the Spider-Man cartoon. So whatever that,
oh my goodness,
whenever that Spider-Man cartoon came out on Fox in 93, 94, whenever that was, that Saturday morning, I think it was 10 a.m. on Fox. I had to be home by 10 a.m. so I could watch the Spider-Man cartoon because I really wanted to see it. And the other thing, comics that I remember reading as a kid, there was a Kool-Aid Man comic
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
There were a series of Kool-Aid Man comics, and I remember finding one where he was fighting against the guy who couldn't stand up straight. He was like a hunchback, and he kidnapped a bunch of kids because they stole his lunch, or he thought they stole his lunch, and he just put it on a shelf really high up, but because he was a hunchback, he didn't see it.
Oh my gosh.
And the Kool-Aid Man also fought a whole bunch of like little flame guys because they were representing like the heat that made you thirsty. And the Kool-Aid Man like would bust in and be like, oh yeah, drink some Kool-Aid. But there was that. And then in I think it was like Drake's Cakes, had a series of like little miniature X-Men or Spider-Man comics, like real small. I'm talking like 3 inches, 3 inches. And they were like maybe 6 or 10 pages, whatever. These little tiny comics that came in Drake's Cakes. Or like the hostess pies or whatever it was they were. I want to say it was Drake's Cakes, though, because I ate a lot of those as a kid.
I can tell you that I was inundated with Superman in many different ways. I mentioned the movie, but also there was a VHS tape from way back. I'm talking 1960s of these short Superman cartoons. And I was exposed to everything.
The Fleischer cartoons, probably.
Yeah.
Well, the Fleischer cartoons were the 40s. Are you talking like...
I don't even know. I'm saying I don't even know what era. It was just... I knew it was dated even back then, but I thought those were cool as well. And the idea that people could do these fantastic things... By the way, the Fantastic Four cartoon, very underrated. And the Iron Man cartoon was underrated as well. Anywho, the fact that you had all of this stuff going on, and for a kid, the fact that the hero would always win drew me to comics and superheroes way more than, for example, wrestling, where it was kind of a 50-50 thing where you didn't know if the hero was going to win. And that bugged me as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was definitely one of those people that drank the Kool-Aid. I always wanted the face to win in wrestling. So when they didn't, it made me realize this isn't fair. I need to find things that are more fair. And that's what also drew me to the idea of comics and superheroes, which we know in the long run, yes, there's always nuance. I get it. And I'm definitely not that way now, but yeah.
I liked wrestling as a kid. Obviously, growing up in the 80s, I grew up in the Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man era. Shout out to Travis Tubasing from the Wrestle Special, who is the biggest macho stan on the planet, I think, at least that in my knowledge. And yeah, the bad guy sometimes won, but that just made me want to root for the hero even more. But I digress. Her next question, the Inhumans, why don't you like them, or was it just the show?
It was just the show.
It was just the show. I think as a group of characters, I think they're fascinating. And I think had Ike Perlmutter and his cheap hands not been all over that television show, it might have actually been something good. But,
Yeah, definitely just the show. I don't have much else to say about that, really.
And I think actually we're recording this the day after Marvel announced at San Diego Comic-Con the rest of their Phase 4 films, and they announced the Eternals as one of the next films that's going to be coming up in Phase 4. I truly think that had the Inhumans not bombed as badly as they did, Marvel Studios would not be looking at the Eternals.
Yeah.
Because it's essentially the same storyline.
Right. Yeah.
Boiled down. There's distinctions in characters, and I'm not saying the Inhumans are all the same as the Eternals are all the same as the X-Men, but we all know that Marvel was pushing the Inhumans because they didn't have the rights to the X-Men. Right. So they were pushing the Inhumans as the next big thing. And then when the Inhumans flopped, understandably so, because the quality of that show was just in the gutter, then they said, well, crap, we can't make an Inhumans movie. Let's do the Eternals.
Yep.
So, and this is a way, I guess, to make it up to the Kirby estate. I don't know. But we don't have anything against the Inhumans as characters. It's just that show was god-awful. What's the one character you hate seeing in a comic? Marvel or DC?
I'm going to go by visceral response, meaning if I see that character, I get less interested. And I'm going to give you... No, forget hints. It's Guy Gardner. Couldn't stand him as Green Lantern. Couldn't stand him as an alternative Lantern. Just everything about him just came off as stereotypical high school jerk that never knew when to turn it off. So for some reason, I can't stand them. Just can't.
Okay, I can totally respect that. I understand that. I don't know that I have a character that that turns me off or that I actively dislike. I certainly rate characters higher than others, but
Okay, well then I'll just shift the question. If you have this hierarchy, who's on the lowest tier?
that's a difficult one to answer as well, only because for me, it depends on the writer. Because to me, a great writer can make a terrible character great or a great character terrible. And the other corollary I'll add to that is if I'm hating a character, for me personally, it's because I feel like I'm supposed to hate the character for what it is that they do, that they represent. You know, to take it out of comics, I hated Joffrey from Game of Thrones. But you're supposed to hate Joffrey. That's the whole point of the character, is you're supposed to consider him this sniveling little turd of a kid, and you're just supposed to have this visceral reaction. And George R. R. Martin, to his credit as a writer, made that very easy. And then Jack Gleason, the actor who played him in the television show, did an amazing job. To the point that if I ever saw Jack Gleason on the street, the first thought I would have is, I want to kick you in the teeth because of how just sniveling little. But that's the point. But to answer Ruby's question, I don't hate seeing characters in comics just on their initial appearance, because for me, if I haven't read the story yet, I don't know what the role of that character is going to be. So I'm very much a wait and see, because if it's a villain, then I know I'm going to dislike the villain, but I also want to find out, well, what are they going to do? Is it going to be a good story where they've come up with this well thought out plan, or is it going to be, I'm just going to punch you and because I want stuff? You know, if it's a weak story, then I dislike the character based on that. If it's a well-written story, then I'll appreciate the character more based on that. As for heroes, I don't know. I guess if you had to put a gun to my head and say, who's a hero? I'll put it that way. Who's a hero that you're not crazy about or that you don't like reading in a book? I will say Cable. I've just never really been interested in him as a character. I think his backstory is incredibly convoluted, and I just find his shtick to be a little tired and worn out. Having said that, I have read good Cable stories. I've certainly read bad Cable stories, and I'm also not much of a mutants guy. So I'll also add that caveat that I'm more of an Avengers. On the Marvel side of things, I'm more of an Avengers guy as opposed to X-Men. Okay. So Cable's never been a character that's really appealed to me.
If you read the run with Hope Summers and Bishop with Cable, where Bishop is the main antagonist and Cable is doing his best to preserve things, which technically is always their role with each other, I think you would have a better appreciation of Cable. I may be wrong about that, but
okay. And I'll fully admit and again, this comes from a place of he's just not my cup of tea, but I don't actively go, oh God, it's a Cable story. Okay. So Brian's question, would Deadpool's it's like a multi-parter. Would Deadpool's fourth wall breaking be considered a psychological disorder in his world and or in ours? And if so, what would that disorder be? Something existing or something entirely new? This is all on you because it's a psychological question, so knock yourself out.
Okay. When we did the Deadpool episode, I focused a lot of it on psychosis, referring to the idea that a person is out of touch with parts of reality. If we're taking Deadpool at face value, it's completely different. He is dealing with an alternate reality that clearly exists and has a benefit of being interacted with. So I would almost question if it could be considered a disorder for us, because we know that this is a character. He knows that he's a character, and it's providing us entertainment. So a disorder has to cause a problem. I don't think that causes a problem for us. So I don't think that's a disorder in our universe. If it's causing problems because people think that he's insane in the comic universe, then I think that would just classify as schizophrenia or any other psychotic level of illness within the comic universe. So I don't see that as needing its own separate category. We could get really existential and say, what if he is interacting with us but doesn't recognize it as us, and he's just simply psychotic in his own world and we're not recognizing it? Then that comes back to, what harm is that causing? Usually it doesn't cause any problems. I love in video games when he's portrayed, sometimes he's actually causing damage in fighting games by using the energy bar itself and like chopping it down.
Marvel versus Capcom.
Oh my goodness. I love stuff like that because I think it's hilarious. But once again, it's not causing harm to us, so that's not pathology for us. It's not even necessarily pathology in comics because it's a fighting game. So ironically, Deadpool might be the most sane person in the whole comics universe because he gets it while no one else does. Really didn't expect that answer, did you?
No. No, did not.
Or we could just say that Deadpool is designed to be crazy and no matter what he does, he's crazy. Whatever. Have fun with it. Deadpool as a character really allows for all of that. So either way, I think that's okay. I wouldn't say, though, that it's an entirely new diagnosis. I've never seen a patient talk to themselves as if they were in a different plane of existence. If they're talking to others, it's usually people that they don't understand how people don't recognize what's going on. They still think it's within our realm. So, yeah.
So you've never seen a patient narrating or talking to themselves, like narrating their thoughts or their actions to an unseen third party?
No, I've seen patients react to the narration that's going on about their actions. That's actually pretty common in schizophrenia.
Yes, no, that part I know about.
Right. No, I know. I'm just saying, like, especially, we have to consider this. Although we've been doing this for 50 episodes, this may be the very first one that someone hears. So I don't want to just automatically preclude the people that don't know what we talk about or how we talk about it and just assume everybody knows everything from the start. So
fair enough.
I'm just giving that as an intro. So if you want to listen to the Deadpool episode and say, well, Doc, you didn't talk about it that way back then. Well, two things. One, repeating yourself over and over again in the exact same way is very boring. And two, I like to give different ideas because I know different people respond to different things. So there you go.
So next series of questions is from Brian Barley over at Marvel Mythos, a great friend of the show. Check out Marvel Mythos. We've actually spoken about me doing a guest appearance on the show at some point in the not too distant future. So thank you to Brian. Whenever you want to talk Moon Knight, let me know. As you've been doing this podcast, have you found a character to relate to that you weren't expecting?
Actually, everyone experienced it along with me. If you remember the Sentry episode, I always enjoyed Sentry as a character, but when we were describing him on that crane and being found by Mr. Fantastic and all of that, I had this intense emotion that I didn't expect. And it's because the Sentry is such a powerful human, well, as human as you can consider him, but it's so incredibly flawed at the same time. And you can tell that all he wants is a peaceful resolution to all of it. And he doesn't want to screw up. And there are times where he says he needs to be alone about it. And there are times where he says he's just got to fight through it and just do the best he can with his powers. And there are times where he says, you know what, other people can make better decisions than me. And then there are times where he's willing to stand up to the most powerful being that's pissed off at all of humankind and the Hulk and say, whatever happens, happens, because I know I got to toe the line here. All of those things that he's done, I felt incredible resonance, and I didn't expect that. So there you go.
I'm going to take it way, way, way back to Tony Stark, which is a very early episode, and just everything that Tony was dealing with, not necessarily with respect to the issues with his parents and alcoholism, but the notion of marrying the intelligence and then the responsibility and what do you do with that. And there have been other characters, as I've said many, many times, this is almost like a weekly therapy for me where I get to talk about my issues through the characters. And then I will have epiphanies and say, oh, wow, so that's what that's like. But with the Tony episode, and this is one of the earlier ones where this happened, where, and I can't recall with specificity, but I just remember having a discussion with you about Tony and saying, I kind of get it now, or I see parts of me in him or him in me, however you want to put it. And that was just a powerful thing. And so to have that relation to a character that I didn't think I would relate to because of all the other issues that he has, but at the core of it, Tony is still a very good guy. And I remember you and I had that discussion, like with all of his issues, how does he still manage to be a hero? And right. I think that resonates with a lot of people, that as flawed as we all are individually as human beings, how do we still continue to move forward and operate in a positive fashion for ourselves and for those around us and for the world at large? And so that was a question that I think just really kind of hit home with me. So Brian's next question: has doing the podcast impacted the way you read comics casually?
Interesting. I would say an unfortunate hedge answer, yes and no. I've always read comics or any type of fiction with a certain critical eye in what I enjoy. So, no, I wouldn't say that the podcast has changed that part. But the fact that at times I'm reading from a character development standpoint that I never did before, specifically for the podcast and my line of work, to try and put myself selfishly into situations with people that were never designed to be put in those situations for the most part, that has been unique, because I don't try to insert myself into anything involving fiction. I love the idea that things are happening way outside of my life. So the idea that, like with many kids who pretend to be superheroes and whatnot, I didn't mind that. I liked doing that. But I never once thought in my life, oh yeah, well, how would I be in that circumstance? Now I do that every day. Anytime I read these things, I really do think, wow, how on earth would I talk to this person? So yeah, that's been the big impact for me.
I would say very similarly that I wouldn't read them as you did, because obviously I don't have the training and the background for that, but I would just view them as, try to read them as human beings first and foremost, especially because I do read a lot of Marvel, and I do think that Marvel in particular humanizes their characters a little better than DC does, because in DC you have Wonder Woman and you have Superman and Green Lantern, and so the characters are much more godlike than Marvel, and that was what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby really revolutionized in the 60s. But I find that their characters are just a little more relatable, and so when I'm reading them, I'm really reading them as humans. And I've been doing that for a while, and that's one of the things that again drew me to Moon Knight, and to Captain America, is these are very much real people with their own hosts of issues. So I wouldn't say that I read them any differently. I will read them a little more critically now than I used to, but I find, ironically enough, that ever since I started reading TV tropes has changed the way I view media in a way that this podcast has not. And I would advise that if anybody reads TV tropes regularly, and that's even a thing on TV tropes, that TV tropes will ruin your life, because it changes the way that you view media, because you see the repeated tropes in TV shows, movies, comics, songs, what have you, and you go, oh, that's just like this other reference, or that's a subversion of this instance, or what have you. So, at least for me, like I said, TV tropes did more to change the way I critically read comics than anything I've done on this podcast. But excellent question. If you could have any creator on the show to discuss a character, which creator and which character? All right. Which is funny, because we were just talking before this show right. about trying to set up interviews with characters, with creators for New York Comic Con, and applying for a panel there. So
I have two answers. One is one that anybody that's listened to multiple episodes is going to see this coming a mile away. The other one is going to be one that may blow your mind if you know who I'm talking about. First one is Tom King.
Yeah.
Okay, he has been a fantastic writer for a long time now, has been on both sides of the aisle when it comes to the big two, and has done an excellent job, whatever it is that he's been working on. Because his mindset in his writing has been very clear about the mental health and emotional aspect of things. And I don't want to say it comes natural, because anyone that says that is that's an insult to writers. Like that's a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I credit him for doing everything that he's done. The other answer, and in terms of characters, honestly, any of them. If he picked the current Batman, great. We talked about Mr. Miracle, same thing. The other one, I'm going to go back to a guy. I gave you this book, actually, a long, long time ago, by a guy named Brian Clevenger.
Oh, yeah, Atomic Age.
So I would love to talk to him. Not about
Nuclear Age, was it?
It was Nuclear Age. But there was also Atomic Lad, and there was a plan for Atomic Age after Nuclear Age. I don't even know if that ever happened, because I didn't follow that string after that original book. But he also has a comic series, Atomic Robo, and there are some characters in that are pretty good. And I would love to talk to him about that, because his sense of humor is the type of humor that I naturally gravitate to, and I will just stop breathing because I'm laughing so hard. So anybody that makes me do that in multiple mediums, because he also had 8-Bit Theater for a long time, which is an online comic, which got me introduced to him in the first place and how I found out about the book. So anything that he did, similar to Tom King, would have me interested. So sorry about a cop-out answer why I didn't just say one character, but that's my honest answer.
I will second you on Tom King, and I would still love to get his take on either the Vision or Mr. Miracle. And then just for me personally, I know I'm glad you're sitting down, because I'm sure this is going to come as a shock to you, but I'd love to talk to Doug Mensch.
Oh, really?
About Moon Knight. Yeah, I know. Shocking. I can't help it. What do you want me to say?
Yeah.
He literally created the character. So
yep.
Anyway, so that would be that. Next, which character haven't you covered that you'd like to, and are there certain ones you are afraid to cover?
I would never use the word afraid. That's I don't think that's accurate. I've been toying with the idea when we first started creating this podcast of literally dedicating an episode saying why I will never do Superman. But I think inherently, I think we mentioned it in the Captain America episode, actually, where, as you already pointed out about the difference between Marvel and DC, he was created so perfectly that it's not really fair for us to pick that apart, because I think in the long run, in my opinion, it would do more harm than good. I think that extolling the positive virtues that repeatedly come forth is better than deconstructing the nuanced potential negatives compared to anything else with that character. So I'll leave that at that. Characters that we haven't done that we want to, I mean, that's a laundry list. I mean, you know, you can name plenty of characters from Hellboy that I'd love to do, because I really enjoyed that, especially with one of the major arcs where they just fall flat on their face because Hellboy's not available to help them, and they just make wrong decision after wrong decision. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to take up the rest of the podcast naming more than that, since I can get away with just listing one group.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me personally, we are actually doing one of the characters that I have been wanting to do for a while, and it's coming up, and thanks to Ruby, She-Hulk. I have an affinity for She-Hulk as a character. She's always been one that has interested me for a long time, even before I was a lawyer, but certainly since then. And I just find her in the right hands to be very, very capable and very well written. And that Charles Soule run is, it's just absolutely stunning. That 12-issue arc. And because Charles is a lawyer, he writes the legal stuff just as compellingly as the superhero stuff. And especially that run is really not about punching and fighting your way through a problem. There is punching and fighting, but it's very much gets to the core of Jeanne as a character. And very similarly with Daredevil, which is another character, another lawyer character that Charles has written. And I just think that he is so perfectly suited to write those two characters because of his law background, that he's able to do things with them that a writer who doesn't have that legal background can't do, because there's just a piece that's missing where it's just, oh yeah, by the way, Matt's a lawyer. Oh yeah, by the way, Jen is doing an attorney stuff, but let's focus on her punching things. that's not who they really get to as the core of a being. And we'll certainly get into that more when we cover She-Hulk in a few weeks. So as far as afraid to cover, I'm just going to, copy what you were saying, Doc, about Superman, that, I mean, what's wrong with Superman? Nothing.
Well,
his problem is that he feels guilty that he can't save everyone all of the time. That's his problem. And that's such a great problem to have. I mean, it's not without its drawbacks, but if that's the biggest flaw that you have about Superman, then I don't know what else you can say. And again, I don't want to tear him down.
Right. I mean, there have been plenty of arcs that showed a flawed Superman, but that was the point. It was, this is not really Superman the way he's supposed to be. Something has drastically changed and will be fixed at some point.
Yeah. Alternate Superman, alternate versions of Superman Red Sun, Kingdom Come, etc. Those versions of Superman, those are more compelling than your standard rote. I mean, All-Star Superman. I would still love to. I would love to discuss the psychology of All-Star Superman as a collective. I think that would make for a very interesting episode. But just because it's so self-contained, and because Superman and all of the various characters go through so much, I just would like to, maybe at a future episode we can discuss All-Star Superman. And Brian's last question, is Scott still a dick? Yes. Scott is a dick.
Wait. Okay, for anyone that's just joining in, this became its own thing because of the Scott Summers episode that we did a while back. And there was some pushback, I think it was on Reddit, about how we handled this, because we know that there are plenty of Cyclops fans. So I stand by the fact that Scott Summers at times does things that are going to be antagonistic even to people that are supposed to like him. I stand by that statement. But I don't think he's all bad or all a jerk or all a dick or whatever you want to call it. It was just an observation in the moment that I thought was going to be funny.
And also it was a reference to that South Park bit with Terrence and Phillip. And yeah, such a dick, Scott. And it just sort of took off from there.
Right. And one of us at some random point will bring it back up, and yeah, it's become its own meme at this time.
Yeah. At least he's not Ugly Bob.
Wow.
Another South Park reference. Question from Jeanne, who did such an amazing job voicing Monica Rambeau in that episode. Keep fighting, girl. I know you're going through some stuff. Mm-hmm. Keep your head up.
Absolutely.
Jeanne wants to know, what are your professional and personal opinions of how Marvel and DC have been able to capture the hearts of fans from all walks of life? She prefaced this with a little discussion about diversity of heroes and diversity of characters within the Marvel and DC universes, and what and how have they been able to capture the imaginations of fans for 80 years. Each company been around for about 80 years.
Well, I think now more so than ever, they've embraced the idea that you don't have to do everything the exact same way in perpetuity. So when artists or writers have ideas that are different than previous generations, rather than saying, you can't do that, it's, how can we do that? Having that open mindset has made all the difference. Stan Lee appreciated that, I think, well before his time, in terms of recognizing we have not just a voice of entertainment, we have a voice of life. And we can really not just take people to situations that are great imaginative stories, but we can demonstrate that we know what people, or relate to what people are going through at any given time, and potentially show them how others may feel about it. And people are willing to have discussions about things they never had discussions about if it weren't for the tapestry of blending comics and society at large. This is something that I don't take for granted. I never did, but especially nowadays with sometimes the intense reactions that people have to different characters, I can say I get it now more than I ever did before. And I'm going to make it personal, not that I haven't before. With Black Panther, I got it. Because I think the idea that a whole group of people that felt like the comics industry and just the way everything was orchestrated never really reached out to certain parts of our world and said that not only is it important, but it can be just as impactful, influential, and had a role in how we live now, made a huge difference for an entire generation of African Americans. I'm going to say that with confidence because I know it. I've seen it. I've felt it. And that's a direct example. The way I've seen women react when Captain Marvel came out, that's not a coincidence. That's amazing. The fact that you had kids all over the world, to go back to one of the tropes, everybody sometime in their life thinks they're Batman because you have to be. You want to fight injustice and you want to do it in a way that you know no one else is going to understand, but doggone it, you're going to get the job done. We are allowed to do so many things vicariously that we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Now that we know that humanity is capable of all these amazing thoughts and stories and emotional energies that permeate everything we do, I don't think it's ever going to go back to the way it was, where you don't talk about these things. And if you ever mention comics, it means that you're strange or you're not a part of regular society. Because at one point, that really was the way it was. If you did anything that was schlock, if you just didn't pay attention to what everybody else considered to be the mainstream, it was a problem. I don't think that anymore. It's a boon.
Absolutely. I will speak from the perspective of a cisgender heterosexual white male for whom comics were basically directed towards for decades. Pretty much the vast, I would say 90% of the history of comics, the writing and the marketing of comics was to people who looked like me. And as someone who has become much more aware of the importance of diversity and the importance of representation through comics, it always rankles me when I see people say, well, I read comics to get away from stuff. Comics has never been about, the real world. Comics is supposed to be fun and stuff like that. Then you miss the entire point of X-Men. Like X-Men from its very inception was a metaphor for the mistreatment of minorities. And then to turn around and see people complaining because, they cast this character to, this character was white, now they're black. What the hell is going on? I watch these movies, I read these comics to get away from the real world. That's your privilege speaking, because it was available to you that you had escapism. But for everybody who doesn't look like me, there was no escapism other than reading these comics where people who looked like Doc or who, were female or Asian American, whatever, could beat up the white male oppressor. I mean, I hate to just put it so bluntly, but that was the escapism for them, was escaping to a world where people who looked like them could win. And the fact that those stories are now really being embraced, to me, is beautiful, because I know not everybody looks like me, and I'm not threatened by that. And I know that not every white male thinks that way, but I do. And I'm not like, not all men, not all white people, whatever. I'm not trying to put myself out there as some woke ally, whatever. I'm just no, I'm just saying that to me, the diversity is a beautiful thing. And I really, truly appreciate that the industry is finally embracing it and really telling these new stories. And that's, again, I was reading all the tweets from the Marvel panel that happened last night. Well, Saturday night as of the release of this episode, that you have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings or whatever it is. You've got an incredibly diverse cast in the Eternals. You have Black Widow. You've got Blade is coming out. You've got all these other stories. Yeah, I know.
Blade. Oh my God.
Yeah, Doc hadn't read the panel or known anything about the panel until before we started recording, and I'm sad that
Big Blade fan, huge Blade fan.
I'm sad,
oh my God.
I'm sad that I wasted the reveal off air or offline when we weren't recording, because he literally got up and walked out of the room because that's how excited he was. But I digress. So to bring it back to Jeanne's question, I think it's a situation where the industry is finally embracing the diversity that has existed for such a long time. And to those small subsect of white male comic fans, those comics gators that are annoyed, that don't want to see this because it's, you know, they're pandering to social justice warriors, or they're cucks, or they're whatever terminology you want to use to denigrate the fact that not every hero has to be a cisgendered white male. The industry doesn't need you, and frankly doesn't want you. And people like that are a disgrace and an embarrassment to the fandoms. And just stop reading, stop listening, stop watching the movies. Don't spend your money. Because they boycotted Captain Marvel, and it did just fine without him. I'm just putting that out there. So the industry doesn't want you. It doesn't need you. And just go read the comics that appeal to you, if that's the case. And leave the rest of us alone to enjoy this beautiful tapestry with a world of diverse heroes that makes everything better, frankly.
And I think we're done with that one.
So moving on from the very serious to some fun questions. Ray from Into the Night, always a big fan and a friend of the show. He said, obviously, we all know Anthony is a diehard Captain America fan and a Moon Knight stan of the highest order, Omega level loony, as Ray likes to say, Omega level loony, in his wonderful Aussie accent. Who are Doc's favorite characters aside from Doc Samson?
Great question. I think based on the reaction you just heard, I absolutely have loved Blade from the start. So that's one. Iron Man has always been a big favorite of mine, which is why it was such an early episode. After that, it kind of gets into this mishmash of who I like at the time, similar to an answer Anthony gave before, based on the writing. So I can get into just about any character when it comes to what's going on with them. So I grew up with all the major ones, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, all that stuff. I don't have like a real hierarchy per se, but I'm saying, I'm sorry, one last major one, because at one point I did have the entire catalog. Deadpool. I absolutely love Deadpool because I felt like he was not just breaking the fourth wall in terms of how he's written, but he was starting to shatter the expectations of what characters are supposed to be. Because so many times characters are even the lighthearted characters at some point are supposed to develop into these dark, brooding, or have these areas that are supposed to overtake what the lightheartedness is. And it just never happens with him. It'll get deep at points, but will just be brought back to the idea that this guy still is looking to be the most entertaining SOB he possibly could be. And I greatly appreciate that. So there you go.
All right. Next question is also for Doc. Are you a comic collector? I guess like he means like single issues, or a trade buyer. And what's the biggest collection of a title or series in your collection?
All right. So I'm going to tick off a lot of people. I am a trade buyer, and it's purely out of the practicality of it. I'm already a clutterbug, to be about it. So the idea
I've seen your house.
The idea of collecting individual comics would be a humongous problem. So I will gladly wait till an arc is over and it comes prepackaged, and I'll get it that way. The biggest collection, I think I just mentioned, I had at one point everything related to Deadpool, I think up until 2011 or something, and I actually had it all in digital format and made a CD/DVD with all of it called Deadpoolapalooza. Hey, just being real here. But at the time I was doing it, the most consistent trade I had was right after the reign of the Superman. So I had a pretty big Superman run there. and that stopped a long time ago. I don't even know exactly. I'll be honest, I don't even know where it is now. It's probably just gone when we have made a couple of moves in our lives with our family. So it might still be at my parents' house for all I know. But yeah. I think that's it. So I do everything digital now. I don't, for the most part, buy physical copies, only because it would just be too unwieldy. Unless my daughter really wants it that way and she wants to get into it, then I'll start doing it again. But everything now is digital.
Okay. Who do you want to put on the couch that isn't from the big two?
It's funny because I didn't look ahead of time, so I think I already mentioned there are a few characters from Hellboy that I would love to get on the couch. No question about it.
I think Liz would be definitely one of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I mentioned it with Brian Clevenger and Atomic Robo. I mean, even Robo himself, even though he's not a human, would make an interesting character because he has so many human traits, but he is very comfortable with it. He never goes through like a Pinocchio syndrome where he wants to be a real boy, even though he's sentient,
Nuclear Man, definitely.
Oh my God. Is that worth it? I'm not denying what you're saying, but I feel like the resolution of the book, by the way, it's a good book. Get the finalized copies that's actually chopped up into 3 books because those were all fully edited. The version that I got was the very first published edition, which had a million typos because the editor died. I never told you that, but that's the truth. Before it was published. Anyway, to get back to this. Actually, where was I going with this? Doggone it.
Nuclear Man?
Right. The fact that Nuclear Man, the way it's resolved, I feel like so many of the other things that he would be on the couch about were kind of tied up pretty well at the end. He still has some things he needs to work out, but he was way more mature than when the book started. So,
That's fair. I have to go back and reread it because it's been forever and a day since I read it. Yeah. Well, it's in 2 weeks we're getting a non-Big Two character on the couch. We're getting Callum Cooper when we interview Erica Schultz.
Right.
And then there's a couple of characters I think from Saga, Brian K. Vaughan, that I would like to get my hands on.
Okay.
Or then any of the gods from what's it? The something in the Divine. What's that?
I wish I were following you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Matthew Wilson. It's like every 20 years or whatever, gods are reborn as pop stars.
Oh, okay.
The Wicked and the Divine. That's it.
Oh, okay.
The Wicked and the Divine. I couldn't come up with it.
Okay.
There are so many characters in that book that are just really messed up.
Okay.
And it's even better because they're all pastiches of various pop stars.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go. We focus so much on, American-centric, Eurocentric things. I mean, we haven't really delved at all into, the whole manga category.
No. So I've never read anything Eastern comics.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll breach that. There's a certain style that I love, and they made them into animes anyway, so that's my first introduction. I didn't read the books first, but I went back and read the books for 2 characters, very similar pattern. And one is Vash the Stampede from Trigun, and the other, aptly named because it's his title, Rurouni Kenshin Imura. Both of those characters are fatalistic in the sense that they refuse, if at all possible, to take any lives. So yes, they kind of remind you of Batman, but just the levels that they go to be the most aggressive pacifists you can imagine with their skills or their powers is incredible. And I think getting them on the couch would be amazing. So I'll toss those out there for anybody that knows what the heck I'm talking about. And if you don't, then you have many different opportunities that you can catch up with those.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it. Last question is from Nick Jenkins, who's an old friend. I've known Nick longer than I've known you.
How dare you?
I went to grammar school with Nick, and he's a big fan of the show. And he reached out to me on Twitter and said, Did Anthony ever submit his Moon Knight script to Marvel? And what Patreon goal do you need to hit for a War of the Worlds style read through? No, I did not submit the script to Marvel because it never reached a point that I felt comfortable and satisfied with it. I know Doc has read, all of the drafts of it, and I did the interview with Into the Night about the latest draft or the latest ideas that I had for the draft. So no, I never submitted it, and they wouldn't accept it anyway because of the whole. They can't accept reading it because if they read it and reject it and then they make a movie that's similar to it, then I can say, oh, well, I can sue them and say, like Coming to America, that, oh, you read my script and rejected it and then you went out and wrote something just like it. And so I don't know that would ever happen. I have considered it, turning it into a fan film, but that would require a lot of capital. And because due to the nature of the intellectual property, I couldn't sell anything based on it. Like I couldn't sell DVDs. It would all have to be done free or for exposure. And it's just not something that I have the time or the resources to do. But for a War of the Worlds style read through of the script, that is some, I don't want to put a number on it, but that's something that maybe, we could maybe get a couple of fans together that might be interested in, in doing that and reading. I would have to really brush up on the draft and really tighten things up, but that's something that maybe I could do in a year. Maybe by the time episode 100 rolls around.
Oh,
maybe.
That's so heady. Wow. I don't know. I'd really have to be up for that, or maybe have a drink in me or something. I don't know.
Well, that I would want to. I mean, if I was going to do it, then I would want to get multiple actors in to play multiple roles.
Yeah.
And really do it up with sound effects and turn it into like a serial.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny because Into the Night is actually doing a serial story as part of their podcast. It's little vignettes at the start or end of every episode. And I was fortunate enough to play a role, 2 roles in a couple of episodes. But this is a big difference between you and I coming up with a skit a little bit before we get started, as opposed to just what amounts to a full production. Yeah, this would be like a radio play, like from the 30s and 40s. But so that would be a lot. Like I said, there would have to be many, many people involved. That is something I don't know that I would want to take on the full-time responsibility of editing and organizing that. Also because I just don't have the resources, because that's not the kind of show that we have. There are shows out there that do very sound effects heavy shows that tell those, they're basically radio plays, and they go really into the sound effects. That's how I would want to do it. I wouldn't want to do it if it's just me and Doc and maybe like one other person sitting here just reading the script. Right.
Although I do look forward to your amazing ability to reanimate Orson Welles. Oh, we're not going that far, huh?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I need a lot of green peas for that.
Who's going to get that reference?
Anybody who watched The Critic.
Yeah, but even then, that was one episode. It's one skit from one episode. That's terrible. I quit. Oh, there's a French fry stuck in my beard. Yeah, that's right. I just recreated the rest of the skit.
Filled with wholesome goodness and green penis. Oh, that's terrible writing. God bless. Or was that The Critic? Was that The Critic or Pinky and the Brain?
No, that was The Critic.
That was The Critic. Okay. It was Maurice LaMarche who did The Brain, right, which was essentially a impression of Orson Welles.
Right. And
they had the entire episode where he was reading the radio play and the commercial, whatever. And it was basically a 11-minute inside joke that nobody got. But if you got it, God, it was brilliant. I digress. There's a lot that would have to happen ultimately, Nick. But it is a hat trick of ideas. And that's a reference that literally only Nick and I will get. But that's okay, because that joke is going back over 25 years. So that I think that wraps it up for the questions that we have.
All right.
But this was fun. I liked doing this. It's a lot more free-flowing, a lot more off the cuff.
Yep.
You got a little more insight personality-wise into Doc and I, just on a personal level.
Yeah. I was getting the impression sometimes that people thought I was a non-comics person that happens to be talking about this because Anthony's a comics person. That's not exactly the case. I hope some of my answers gave a hint to that. As a matter of fact, it may be the opposite issue. It's that a lot of the things I read are not necessarily even close to the big two, but aren't even worth bringing up because nobody else seems to really care about that sort of thing. And I don't want to make this an homage to myself or whatever. It's the exact opposite. So I don't mind sticking with the big two. And I've read plenty of the big two. But the fact that people are asking some of these other things really gives me a lot of hope that we can branch out even more than we have. Because the more variety we have, the more fun this becomes. Not that it's not already fun, but I really don't have a limit as to how long I want to keep doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, and I love that, especially this season, we've really branched out in the episode types. We did the relationship episode with Xavier and Magneto. We did the thematic one that Matt suggested. We've done creator interviews. It's really, really starting to branch out, and I think that's what keeping it is fresh and keeping it new and exciting for both of us. Because not that we can't sit here and just talk about one character an episode, but the idea that we can delve into a run or a theme or whatever just makes it a little more interesting and, you know, a nice change of pace.
Yep.
So that's going to do it for this episode. So next episode, Brian, our patron, our good friend Brian, has asked for the Riddler. So that one is going to be a lot of fun. And then, as we said at the top of the show, the next episode after that is going to be an interview with Erica Schultz, and it's going to be talking about Callum Cooper from 12 Devils Dancing. So if you haven't checked that out, please go and order that. I think you can maybe read it online. I think maybe it's available through Comixology. I'm not really sure, but you can definitely order the book. And so we're looking forward to chatting with Erica. And then we're going to talk She-Hulk and Jason Todd.
Wow.
So some big names coming up. So as always, please like, subscribe to our show. If you're checking us out on YouTube, you can like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on a podcast platform that allows you to leave a rating and review, please do so. That's mostly iTunes, but you can also find us on Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podcoin, where you can actually get paid to listen to us. We're not a bonus, but you can still get paid to listen to us on Podcoin, which is basically how I listen to all my podcasts nowadays. And you can join our Patreon, because we now have a Patreon, or we've had a Patreon for a while. You can subscribe at a variety of levels, and if you subscribe at the $3 and up level, we will send you a sticker, because now we have a TeePublic. We have a store where you can buy merchandise. So another critical, buy my book.
Oh, God.
Buy my book. Buy my book.
I think the Critic was a total of like 24 episodes in its entirety, and you just referenced it twice in one show. That's amazing.
It was such an amazing show, though. I miss it.
Yeah.
I also I miss Park Overall and anything that she does. She just has a sexy voice, but I digress. So TeePublic, teepublic.com/user/capes on the couch. You go there and you can get t-shirts, hoodies, all sorts of fun merch with our awesome logo on it. Again, shout out to my cousin Renee for designing the logo. And you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for all your social media needs, because I'm very active on Twitter, a little bit less so on Facebook, and I really need to do a little bit more on Instagram. But you follow us on Twitter. I am on the part of Twitter that doesn't get nasty or ugly. So you can really curate your Twitter feeds to find the happy stuff. There is still good stuff on Twitter. It's not a black hole like some other parts of Twitter. Our part of Twitter is fun. I curate my feed very carefully. Yeah. So, Doc, anything you want to toss in before we're done?
Nope. Just thanks for not probing too much into medical questions like my personal ailments or anything else that would have been really awkward.
Fair enough. So thank you for listening for 50 episodes. We hope you stick around for 50 more. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much. We will see you next time.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.